Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Dr. Kate Lund, author of Bounce, Help Your Child Build Resilience and Thrive in School, Sports, and Life. Dr. Kate, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, we are thrilled to have you. Are you ready to begin?
I sure am.
All right. Question number one. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
Well, Paul, what I would say is find focus. And I would say that because focus truly is the key. And I found that really throughout my process because it's so easy to lose focus when working on anything. Yet, particularly, this is true when it comes to writing a book. Think about it. There are competing demands out there in every aspect of our lives. Ideas coming from all directions, self-talk, which we have to manage. And these are just to name a few things which can push us off course as authors. So really creating space each day or each week that allows us to focus on the book or project that we're working on is so vital. And once we have that focus, things just sort of unfold and develop over time.
And what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
Well, kind of akin to my first answer, I think the hardest piece of process is really finding the time and focus amidst all sorts of competing demands that we have in our lives. And so once we find that focus and we hone in on our message, that becomes our main challenge. And then from there, our message develops when we're able to kind of continue honing it over time in a way that allows us to really get to the heart of what we're trying to communicate in our book. And then deciding how we want to publish our book. Do we want to self-publish? Do we want to go with a traditional publisher? Or do we want to do something, with sort of more of a hybrid group, which is what I did in publishing Bounce. I worked with a group called Bestseller Publishing, and really figuring out which direction I wanted to go with that was so important, but it was challenging at the same time.
Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that has worked well.
Well, so for me, what worked best was local outreach. And I did a lot of local outreach in schools, for example, and with community organizations and parent groups, where I shared the pillars of resilience with teachers and kids and parents. And then beyond that, I did a bunch of local book signings, which generated lots of interest in the book. And finally, with the help of Bestseller Publishing, I did a small media tour focused on radio and TV, which also really helped to generate solid interest in the book, and which was a lot of fun because I was able to travel around the country a bit with that, and that was really a blast. And I'll also mention that in terms of local outreach, what worked really, really well for my children's book, which I published a year before I published Bounce, and this book was also focused on resilience, was I went into the schools and I was able to bring my dog, who was the main character in that children's book. And that was awesome because kids love to hang out with the dog. They love to meet Putter, who was the main character in this children's book. And we were really able to work with the book and with Putter from a variety of different developmental points of view. And it was really, really cool. So really honing in on a strategy which matches who you are as an author, what your message is, and what other things you might be able to bring into the mix to make the outreach exciting and engaging for people really would be my biggest piece of advice and what worked really well for me.
Well, you mentioned about doing media tours, so tell us a little bit more about that process and how it worked.
Well, super fun, and the folks over at Bestseller Publishing really helped a lot with that, in terms of, they have publicists on staff, and they helped me to create one sheets and really hone my message from the book that I wanted to share with the media, and really the core of what was in the book, which is basically how to help your child overcome challenge, move through and beyond challenge with resilience and strength. And so they were really instrumental in pitching me, my book, my message, and got lots of opportunity, some really great TV opportunities around the country, as well as many, many radio opportunities and podcast opportunities. But the key there is to really hook up with a publicist or someone who can help you strategize, help you get the message out there in terms of what you want to share, and then make those actual connections so that it can happen.
Yeah, because I think it's the biggest thing. You have to have a hook and something that's going to, typically talk about a couple of benefits and how it's going to benefit the audience.
Absolutely, yep. And a good publicist will help you to do that. So we had a great plan in that way.
So just ballpark, how many interviews did you do with your media tour? Because you mentioned there was a variety of radio, local television shows, and also podcasts.
Yeah, so I did 3 or 4 TV spots, and a good handful, 5, 6 podcasts, and 15, 16 radio interviews over the course of 6 months or so. So I got quite a bit of opportunity from that perspective.
Excellent. And these were local radio networks across the country, right? So you weren't necessarily having to travel. You could actually do those conversations via the phone.
Exactly. Yep. And that made it fantastic. So easy to access. It was great.
Perfect. Now, you did mention you did a little traveling. So were you doing that with the local TV shows across the country?
I did travel a bit with TV. I went to Connecticut. I'm based in Washington State, and I went to Connecticut to work with an NBC affiliate out there. And they just happened to be interested in the message, talking about resilience, and it was back to school time. And I chatted with the host about helping kids overcome back to school anxiety. And we had some very specific strategies and steps that we outlined about that very question. And it just so happened that station was interested, and I thought it was a wonderful opportunity to help folks with that message. So I went, and it was awesome. And also traveled to Tucson, did much the same spot, and the other TV spots were local here in Seattle.
Excellent. And then the Tucson, was that also an NBC affiliate, or was that a different station?
It was a different station. It was an ABC affiliate.
Nice. Well, that's cool, because I don't think you see a lot of those these days, where you have companies that take some of those elements of those traditional book launches. So it's so cool that you're able to do the interviews on the television, then the podcast, then also on the local radio too. It's just a great combination.
Fantastic combination, yeah, and really sort of enriched the whole experience of writing the book and launching the book, and really feeling like there was that opportunity to help people with the core message. So really, really enjoyed that opportunity and experience.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of books, I'd like to know, what is your favorite book, and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
Well, so, that I thought that was such a cool question. And, I've loved many books, but what really I kind of focused in on here was, I love Wonder by R.J. Palacio. And why I loved it, I love the message of resilience that's kind of shared throughout the book, and the importance that we see in this book of understanding and appreciating individual difference. Because that is such an important message, and one of my core messages, and I loved that in this book. It was just so clear throughout. And I love how we see the impact of perseverance and pushing through challenge, and how that's so clear throughout. There's so many important and real messages in this book, which are great reminders for all of us, great lessons for all of us, but particularly for our children.
And for our final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
Well, so my favorite quote is a quote by Winston Churchill. And that quote is, "Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts." And so to me, this quote really captures what it means to be resilient and to move through and beyond challenge. Success really isn't free. It's a process which evolves over time and requires us to fail and to come back from those experiences in a way which allows us to move forward. And I really think that this is such an important message for our kids and such an important message to kind of impart on the parents that we work with to try to help them work with their kids on building these skills. So love that quote. And I have it on my desk, as a matter of fact. And anyway, so I love that question too. Love that question.
Well, it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes from Churchill. You have enemies? Good. That means you stood for something sometime in your life.
Love it. Love it.
Well, Dr. Kate, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
I have a website. It's www.drkatelund.com. Or I have another website, which I've just launched. It's www.katelundspeaks.com. So either one of those is a great way to get in touch.
Excellent. Well, Dr. Kate, thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Thank you so much for having me, Paul.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how you can be featured in our brand new Get Published business book, go to getpublishedpodcast.com.